Alright, hello everybody. Take 3 on attempting to do this video. Good lord. This is the third time I'm trying to record this. But welcome to something new. It's a new series on the channel. New college football is going to be added onto the channel. Now, for the longest time, not the longest time, but for like a month, I've been doing like triple uploads a week, like double, triple uploads for the Bama and Cowboys series. And as fast as we've been getting through those, which is cool, I don't like just kind of overloading with just like one or two series on the channel. I like to kind of break it up a little bit so there's a little bit more variety. That's kind of why I've been doing hockey and baseball on the channel alongside of that, but I realized that those videos don't really do like as well, so I figured maybe my audience, my little audience, my cherished little audience, maybe just prefers to watch a little bit more football, so I'm like, maybe I'll just run another series of Madden or NCAA alongside the two main ones while we just kind of get through this first part of the year. Then maybe when baseball season comes back around, we might switch something up. We might just continue football all throughout the summer until football season's back, and then we can change up all the series on the channel, because the Bama one's probably going to take a while. That's like a 20-year rebuild, or you know, however long Nick Saban was a coach at Bama. That's how many years you have, so you can calculate that math. And then I'm not really sure how long the Cowboys series is going to run for now, but this isn't so much an update, a channel update, even though I've hijacked the first minute of this video to be that. This is to introduce the new series, which is the Idaho Vandals. I've wanted to do the Vandals for so long. I always figured I'd probably do it years down the road, but this is like the third or fourth year that I've been doing this channel, so I figured why not, right? Better late than never. Or just, you know, do it now. I could do another one whenever I want to. That's the beauty of making your own videos. I encourage people to do that if they don't like mine, is make your own videos. It's a lot of fun. But either way, so for those of you who don't know the short history of the Idaho Vandals, it's not very short. I mean, it's very long, but in FBS at least. So Idaho, as a perennial FCS team in the 80s and 90s, would eventually make the promotion to FBS in 1996. They would struggle the entire time they were in FBS, and I think in 2015 they would eventually go back down to FCS college football, and they're the only team in both levels to ever make that move back down. They had to ever demote themselves. So that is the history of Idaho, and they're just such a fun relic from this era of PS2 gaming and sports gaming, because you know, you get to play with them. You know what I mean? And now you can't play with them anymore. So in this season that this game takes place, this is NCAA05, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious. In the season that this game takes place, they immediately fired their first coach that I think they took into FBS, Tom Cable, who was their coach from like 98, 97, 98, all the way up until last season, 2003, when he went, as you can see on the screen, 3-9, and they would fire him. And so they would hire Nick Holt to coach for this season that this game takes place in, and then he would be fired, and someone else would be brought in. So we're going to try and break that cycle, if at all possible, with our coach, Tom Lynch. This is going to be our coach, Tom Lynch. I tried to emulate Jason Eck a little bit, who is Idaho's most recent coach. He just left to go to FBS. I forget where he's going in FBS. I think New Mexico, right? New Mexico State? I think New Mexico. But I tried to kind of emulate Jason Eck, his steez a little bit, his swag. He definitely had a little bit with the current Vandals. Okay, so first things first here, we have to go through our rosters, or rather the depth chart. We're going to go through the depth chart first. I could have sworn that there was a screen or an option where you could like just auto-generate names for players, but I didn't see it. I thought it was in NCAA05 was the first year they had it, but it might be in 06. So we might just have to suffer with the numbers here for a few years, which we've done on all my other series, because I love to play the games before 06. And not after, as you know. So this is why I wanted to narrate this in real time, because the depth chart is kind of out of whack here for the Vandals. So they have a junior starting at quarterback, but he's a 65. I went through their throw power and accuracy, and this freshman is actually better than the junior is. So we're actually going to make that switch at quarterback and start number 16. He's going to be our first quarterback here, presumably probably for the next few years, because I doubt we'll be able to recruit, which is another thing I kind of wanted to talk about, which I guess maybe if I remember I'll rant about it at the very end. But also at running back, there's an interesting dilemma here. So we have a sophomore who is a 65, and we also have a freshman who is a 65, but the freshman has 10 speed better. So, as you know, as I've said before, in these older games, speed is really kind of something that you can prioritize, especially when the overall is identical. You know what I mean? The stats that this number 1 probably has that are better than number 6 are probably negligible at that position. So we're just going to put number 6 as our starting running back, but we will probably see a good bit of both of them throughout the season. We only have one fullback on the roster. He's a senior, so we will have to replace our fullback situation. Moving ahead to receiver, however, receiver is another position that's just kind of out of whack. So at the top here, we have a senior who's a 65, and we also have a sophomore who is a 65 as well. Below them is another senior at 62, and then all the way down here, our offensive captain, number 14, who was a 70 overall, is all the way at receiver 4. So that's a complete mess. We're going to fix that. So I'm actually going to move 84 because he's slower. I'm going to move 84 down to this receiver 3 position, and then we're going to move number 3 down to the 4 position in place of obviously number 14, our best, probably our best offensive player, period, at a 70 overall, and he is a senior, so we will be losing him after the season. But the rest of the receiving core appears to be at least relatively young. We will lose also this number 84 as well. He will also be gone. And number 3 is actually no. Our receiving core will pretty much be completely decimated after the season. We will lose everybody except for number 19. So it will be a rough turnover at that position. So at the tight end position, we also have another senior here. He's a 68 overall. Also rocking the linebacker face mask. That's crazy. I feel like I really want to change that, but we might just leave it. But behind him, we do have a freshman at 65, so it seems like we will be fine, at least for the short term, at the tight end position. We even have someone behind him. He's at 59, not really worth starting or playing, but at least we do have some depth at the position, and we will have someone who will be able to start over the senior that we will lose after this season. Left tackle is another pretty prominent position on this team here. We have a 72 overall starter, and he's a sophomore, so we will have him for at least another year or two, which is nice to know. And behind him, we have a senior at 65, so he will be gone. So maybe we have to recruit a backup for him, but at 72 overall, he will be here for at least a couple of years. At left guard here, we have a 65 overall left guard who's also a sophomore. So our first 2 offensive line positions, we seem to be doing okay at in terms of short-term fixes or solutions. We seem to be all right. And the backup left guard is also sophomore, so we are okay here. In the center position, we have a freshman starting at center. So this is a young team, man. This is a pretty young team. This must be one of the first classes or like new influx of recruits that Idaho kind of got since coming to FBS. You know what I mean? So like maybe that first class from like the late 90s, early 2000s is gone, and this is like the first new wave of the next class at the FBS level that we're probably seeing. So we had a lot of fresh, new, young guys to kind of build around, including our starting center at 65 overall. We have a junior as a backup as well. So at the right guard position, we do have a junior. He's a 65 overall. I highly doubt he would leave after this year, but I guess it is possible he could. And then his backup is a 48 overall. Jeez, he's a senior, so he will be gone too. So losing a lot of backups. Looks like looks like Tom Cable was maybe out recruiting the people that were on the team from the mid to late 90s, maybe kind of replacing them. So at right tackle, we have another sophomore. He's a 65 overall. And behind him, we have another sophomore. So a ton of sophomores on the offensive line, which is interesting. So we have a Sunbelt second-team All-American at left end. He's clearly the best player on this team. Has to be. Will it even show previous stats? No, it won't. Okay. So he is going to be our starting left end. And he's a junior, so we should maybe have him for a senior year too. I can't imagine he would leave early, but his backup is a senior. So either way, we're going to have to probably be considering left end moving forward, at least past this season, I would imagine. And then right end is a 65 overall senior, so we'll be losing him. And then behind him, it is a grim picture with only 56 overalls behind him. So right end, or just edge rushing in general, is probably going to be a pretty big priority in the first year or two of recruiting that we're going to need to look at. So on the defensive line in general, it gets pretty bad. It gets even worse. Our top defensive tackle, 62 overall, is a senior, and we will be losing him after this season. He has a junior behind him, and then number 3 is also a senior, but for some reason, he is number 3, which is not going to work. So we're going to move number 94 into the 2 spot because he's 59, and it makes a little bit more sense. But these are 2 seniors, so we will have to kind of rebuild the defensive tackle position as well after this season. So at the left outside linebacking position, we have a junior, number 27. He's a 62 overall, and we have a freshman behind him. So maybe, I guess for the short term, we probably don't have to worry about left outside linebacker, but obviously we need to get better here. It goes without saying that we need to get better everywhere on the team since we have a lot of 50s and 60s exclusively on our roster, and that's not going to hold a ton of water. So we have 2 56 overall options at middle linebacker. I wonder if either of them are better. No, they're not even listed here. Looks like both of these guys are going to get stuck here. One's a junior, one's a freshman. So I guess we'll probably be using a combination of the two of them for the next couple seasons. So I guess we don't need to worry about having this log jam here, I guess. And then on the right side, we have another 62 overall, and he's a sophomore. So our linebacking core is a little bit younger than the defensive line is, but just as bad. So consider that, I guess. We have another All-American on the team. We have a second-team All-American, or Sun Belt All-American player at cornerback, our starting cornerback. He's a senior, and so these better guys might be actual people. They might have even had some NFL stints. I'm not entirely sure. You guys might know. Maybe if you're an Idaho Vandal fan watching this, you might know from this time. But number 8, as how he's going to be known, is a senior, and he's leading our defense at 76. So not the best player in the defense, because our left end is, but probably the second best player on the team in general. So we have a freshman number 70, or not number 37. He's a 70 overall. He's number 2. So we actually have a pretty solid tandem at DB on this team. It's probably the only position group that's not like completely awful. And then we have a senior at cornerback 3, and then it kind of tapers off after that. I guess we'll put number 30 in the 4 spot. I don't know why he's below that, but either way, is it a speed thing? No, it's definitely not. I don't know why, but so we have 2 pretty good DBs. That's kind of fun, at least for the first season, to have that. Even our free safety's not like the end of the world. He's a 68 overall. I don't know how training works in this game, so these guys might actually get a little bit better. We might have a handful of guys on the defense, and even just on the team in general, maybe creep their way into a low 70, and the team might not be like the worst thing in the world, but who knows? And then we have a freshman behind him. At the strong safety position, we have another 70, so we have a few 70s on the defense. And our strong safety is a junior, so we will have him for another season as well. It'd probably be smart to redshirt him too, but we only have a 44 overall behind him, so we will definitely not be doing that because we desperately need him to start every game here. So, and then our kicker is also an All-American. So there's 3 All-Americans on this Idaho team. That's interesting. I didn't think they would have any, but so he's a 76 overall. So, and I guess we have to look at punter too. Another 70 overall. So our special teams guys should be decent as well. We might be able to rely on field goal kicking if that's the case as well. So looking at the roster overall, can I get, all, okay, so so our left end, number 13, is the best player on the team, obviously by and far the best player on the team. And then we have 2 76s between our kicker and number 8, our cornerback. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 70 overall players. So we have a receiver, a couple defensive guys here, a kicker, 2 kickers, or a punter, and then our left tackle is also 72. So that's how the roster kind of stacks up. It's not as bad as I think maybe in the older games. Like I think in NCAA04, it's like impossible to play with Idaho, which is kind of the spiel I want to give at the end of the video. So we're going to look now at the preseason options. Just take a glance over the schedule before I go like week by week. So our lock schedule here is obviously our conference schedule. So the Sun Belt is different. That was another reason I wanted to do Idaho in 05 and do another Sun Belt opponent, because with the Louisiana Monroe series that we did, because of how the BCS computer worked and the fact that that game didn't have conference invitations, we were stuck in the Sun Belt. So no matter how good I made Louisiana Monroe, they were never going to get an invitation to play in a BCS title game because we just didn't have the criteria. We didn't have the resume to even get favored by the computer. Like, we would have never gotten it. So, except for the one time that we did against TCU, which is weird, but go watch that series. It's a whole thing on its own. So this is a little bit better. The Sun Belt's a little bit more filled out. I don't know exactly all the differences between the conference in this game versus NCAA03. I know Utah State is a new addition. I believe Arkansas State is too. I'm not entirely sure, though, but otherwise I think it's mostly the same. Our non-con schedule is, obviously in the first year I'm going to keep everything the same as it is in real life, and this is what Idaho actually had to do. We have quite the pup schedule on the road here. We're kind of a sock puppet for a lot of other teams here, but we obviously have to play Boise State, which is probably going to be a loss. This is our rivalry game too, I think, technically. I think in real life Idaho just plays Idaho State now, but I think probably when they were in FBS they'd probably play each other pretty often. We also have Washington State on the road. We have to go to Austin in Eugene to play Oregon, which is crazy. We then have to go all the way to Michigan to play Eastern Michigan. oh my God, all the way to Ypsi to play Eastern Michigan. That's disgusting. And then we also have Hawaii, so we get to go to Aloha Stadium. That should be fun, right? It's also why I like playing these smaller teams, man, is because all these road schedules, we get to see stadiums you'd never see and teams you'd never see, that we're not going to see in the Bama series. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. But we will go through week by week and see exactly what things are looking like, and then we will get right on out of here and look ahead, I guess, to Boise State. We'll probably start this off in our first game here with Boise State, and I'll mess with the settings and all that fun stuff. So we do start on the road. Look at this road trip, good God. So we start on the road against Boise State, then we continue against Utah State, then continue on the road against Washington State, then Oregon, then Eastern Michigan, and we don't get a home game until week 7 of the season against Louisiana Monroe, which we will obviously be watching our first home game in the Kiwi Dome, and of course a matchup against one of the old dynasties on the channel. So we'll obviously have to watch that. I'm not sure which one of these non-con games that we will be watching. We'll obviously watch Boise State. I mean, this is a conference game against Utah State, but we'll be watching Boise State, probably this Oregon game too, and then we'll skip to Louisiana Monroe. Then we have Louisiana Lafayette immediately after, also at home. Then we take to the road again to play Middle Tennessee State, and then Troy State, and then we're back home with Arkansas State, and then on the road against North Texas, who is kind of the powerhouse of the Sun Belt at this time. They were in NCAA03 as well, and they're just kind of continuing to be one of the better teams in the conference. And then we have Hawaii on the road, and that is how we end our season. So I'm not sure which one in our conference games we're going to prioritize here. Probably Louisiana Monroe, and then maybe Middle Tennessee State or Troy State, and then we might finish with this game at North Texas. That might be how things stack up here. So what are the goals for the first game or first season at the helm of Idaho? Not much, really. They're really not much. So in my experience trying to do Idaho Dynasties and other games, off the channel and whatever, it's pretty hard to do Idaho because they don't have a ton of recruiting points because, they're in Idaho. They're not by a lot of pipelines, or it's not a pipeline itself. So you don't get a lot of great recruits coming out of Idaho. You don't have a ton of points to get out-of-state recruits. So you kind of have to be selective with how you build the team. It's kind of a slower process, and you don't always get a ton of points or a ton of recruits to make the team better. So it gets kind of difficult, especially if you try and sim, like do full year sims. It gets very difficult. So hopefully by watching some of these games, we'll be able to at least get a few more wins than we normally would, because normally Idaho goes like 1-11 or 2-10, and it's just impossible to build a team that way. So, but maybe if we can get 4 or 5 wins in this first year, and just get like kind of sniffable game, maybe. We don't play any FCS teams, so any wins we get will go towards that. So that's an important thing to note too. So maybe if we can do that, that might be marked as a success. 4-8, 5-7. That's what I'm claiming here. And if I do get fired, I'm just going to keep remaking the same coach probably, or maybe switch it when I feel it should be fired. But we'll just continue with Idaho. That's the plan. The same way I'm doing it in the Cowboys series is how I plan to do it with the Idaho series, and just keep it going as long as I can. But yeah, that's the game plan. So when we come back here, we're going to do this first game against Boise State. Hopefully you guys are excited. We come in ranked 115th in the nation, by the way. There's 119 teams total. We added FAU and FIU for this season. So we're finally up to 119 FBS teams, and we're 115th. So just to give you an idea of how bad this team really is on paper. So when we come back, we're going to get in this interstate rivalry here and play Boise State on the blue turf, by the way. So that should be fun. Hopefully you guys come back for that. Hopefully you guys want to watch this new series. Give me some comments or feedback if you care to. If not, that's cool. If you like the video, awesome. If you don't, make your own. It'd be fun. I'd love to watch what you create. Get more people doing this. It's awesome. So, but thank you so much for watching. If you did, and when we come back, we will get some Idaho football.